Mayor Duggan joins me now on set. Thank you, Mayor Duggan, for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
We really appreciate it. So you are throwing your hat into the ring as an independent, despite that you have served as mayor as a Democrat for 10 years. Why?
Well, actually, in Michigan, mayors are elected nonpartisan. So I've been a nonpartisan mayor, although I've certainly been a part of the Democratic Party. But it's hard to describe what Detroit was like in 2014 when I started. Of course, in bankruptcy, highest unemployment rate in America, highest murder rate in America, half the streetlights out. But the thing that defined Detroit politics then was it was all us versus them. It's the business community's fault. It's the suburbs' fault. It's Lansing's fault. And I ran in an 83% African-American city, and I went house to house, and I said, I'm not interested in blaming anybody. We need everybody working together. And pretty much nobody thought I had a chance to win. And I won. I've been elected 72%, 75% the last two re-elections because Detroit voters have decided we're not going to do this us versus them politics. They've embraced a politics of unity. And that really contrasts with what's happening at the state of Michigan. And I thought, you know, maybe there's a lesson to be learned here.
I want to play you what Michigan Secretary of State and potential gubernatorial candidate Joselyn Benson had to say. Get your reaction on the other side.
Right now, it's clear. We need to ensure members of the Democratic Party, our leaders throughout the state everywhere, are listening to the residents of this state. And so for me, it's important that in moments like this, we don't flee from the party, but we stay and fix it.
How do you respond to that?
So I think the parties are going to face reality sometime soon. In my lifetime, Michigan's always been closely divided. I mean, we've swung from Republican to Democratic governors every time since the 1970s. But it was civil. There was constructive engagement. What's happened in this state is nothing short of toxic. And I think there are a whole lot of people in Michigan who are fed up with the fact that the Republicans and Democrats are more interested in fighting with each other and being in charge than they are in solving problems. And certainly based on the reaction I've gotten in the last month, I think the Republicans and Democrats are both going to be surprised how badly people want another choice.
Historically speaking, though, third-party candidates struggle, and Michigan has never had an independent governor. Why do you think you'll be different?
So if I could take you back when I declared for mayor, there hadn't been a white candidate for mayor in Detroit in 50 years. Then I got thrown off the ballot on a technicality, so I had to run as a writer. There had never been. Everybody said you can't do it. But you know what happens when you sit down with people and say, here's what we have in common. Okay? And in Michigan now, our eighth graders are 43rd in the country in reading. I never thought I'd see this. This is in the last few years. This has been going on for 30 years. We lead America in people under 30 moving out of state. This is what we need to be dealing with. And I think if you ask people in Michigan, neither the Republicans nor Democrats have paid attention to those issues.
Just to help people understand, and when you're out campaigning, is it that ideologically you have shifted, or is it that the politics have shifted?
I haven't shifted at all. But what people have seen is this. The unemployment rate in Detroit was 20% when I came in. There hadn't been an auto plant in 20 years. We landed 5,000 employee Jeep assembly plant, 5,000 employee electric vehicle plant at General Motors, 2,500 employee Amazon plant. Now we've got the lowest unemployment rate in 30 years because I didn't get into all the politics. People saying don't have Amazon, they're anti-labor. Well, the neighbors came to the meeting and said, no, we want the jobs in our neighborhood. So for the last 12 years, I've ignored the politics of left and right and said this is what's good for Detroit. And everybody in southeastern Michigan who now comes into Detroit in huge numbers, you saw the NFL draft with 775,000 people in and no incidents, that people are saying, hey, that politics of working together, that's looking pretty good.
What do you make of what we heard from Gretchen Whitmer this week? Reacting to President-elect Trump's promise to impose 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. She talked about the fact that it could hurt Michigan's auto industry. Do you agree with her? Do you oppose these tariffs?
So it's hard to tell how much the president-elect is negotiating
that's exactly
versus
right.
real. But,
I tried to ask him, but I didn't get an answer.
But if you were to come see the assembly plants, we have 3 major assembly plants in Detroit. We have all kinds of parts coming across the river. Windsor is right across the river from us. It's part of our supply chain. If you put a significant tariff on the parts coming from Canada, it's going to do real damage to the Michigan auto industry. But on the other hand, if there are tariffs in Mexico, most Michigan residents don't really have a great problem with that. At this point, I'm hoping that the president is doing a sophisticated negotiation, and I'll wait and see what he actually imposes before I reach a conclusion.
We have about 30 seconds. What's your message to Democrats about working with President-elect Trump? Should they find a way to do it?
So Democrats aren't listening to me anymore. I'm an independent, but I would say this to everybody, that when somebody is elected, you ought to work with them in good faith. Doesn't mean you give up your principles, and I think you've seen Gretchen Whitmer set a pretty good tone that way.
Mayor Duggan, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you here in person.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.